All right, this is the copyright disclaimer. The copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Fair use, fair use, fair use. Medical disclaimer. This video is for informational purposes only and is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Always consult with your physician before starting any exercise program or anything contained in this video. Always stop if you experience any pain, discomfort, or difficulties performing anything described in this video.
Vertus Wellborn Hardiman was a victim of a U.S. government human radiation experiment at the age of 5 that left him with a painful skull deformity that forced him to cover his head for 80 years. Hardiman was born in Lyles Station, Indiana. In 1928, Vertus attended Lyles Consolidated School, where he and 9 other children were severely irradiated during a medical experiment conducted at the local county hospital. To get parental consent, the experiment was misrepresented as a new therapy for the scalp fungus known as ringworm. The radiation of the skull led to immediate symptoms, but also to a severe progressive necrosis of the bone all through his life. The school children from Lyles Station School were delivered by their school bus, including Vertus, who was only 5 years old at the time and not technically enrolled in school. His mother sent him with his older brother to receive what they had been told was treatment for ringworm. All of the children treated with the radiation complained of the same symptoms. They all experienced headaches, suffered from dizziness, and felt extreme burning of the scalp. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe if you would like to view more of our videos. Have a nice day.
This man lived with a hole in his head because of a horrifying government radiation experiment that happened at the age of 5. Welcome back to Hidden Medical History. Let's talk about the little-known story of Vertus Hardiman. Vertus was born in Lyles Station, Indiana. In 1927, at the age of 5, he had a case of ringworm. He and 9 other black children were taken to a hospital for treatment. What parents didn't know was that they were signing permission slips for their kids to receive high-dose radiation. Many of the kids were left with agonizing pain. Vertus got it the worst, and parents tried to sue the hospital, but lost. Because of the radiation, Vertus had severe necrosis of his bone throughout his life. For more than 70 years, he wore a wig and didn't tell anyone his secret. Vertus's wounds eventually became cancerous, and in 2007, he died at the age of 85. But when asked if he was angry, he said no, because if you're angry, then your heart's not right. That's one lesson I hope we can take from this tragic story.
Man wore a wig on his head for more than 70 years, and not because he was bald. The reasoning is a lot more sinister than you might think. In 1927, Vertus Hardiman was only 5 years old when he was suffering from a case of ringworm. Him and 9 other black children were taken to the hospital for treatment, but the parents had no idea that they were signing up to be a part of a test for a new form of treatment using a high dose of radiation. When it was Vertus's turn, he can remember hearing the nurse shout, "Oh my god, I've given him too much." All of the children a part of the study suffered burns and hair loss, but Vertus suffered the most. He suffered from a massive open wound on his head and suffered from necrosis on his skull that never healed until he passed away at age 85. And that's why
This is the book of Obadiah, chapter 1, verse 10, and it reads, "For thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever." Giving all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Raha Kakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well in teaching me this 100% truth. Salutations to them and my fellow Akim who labor in this truth week in and week out on the highways and byways. Also salutations to the hopeful elect of the scattered 12 tribes of Israel, scattered to the four corners of the earth, that be like unto the speckled bird, also known as your Israelite foreigners, and your so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. To you, I say Shalom. This is your brother Ayashar Barazar from the Indianapolis branch of the Great Millstone, coming back at you with another lesson that is edifying to the elect body of the nation of Israel. All right, today is yet another installment of our camp series called For Thy Violence Against Thy Brother Jacob, where we go through the treacherous and tumultuous history of what Esau Edom has done to the nation of Israel. Okay, specifically, all 12 tribes here in America. And this article comes from Afro News, and it's a horrible story. As we go through these videos every week, we have always been the object of destruction of the U.S. government. As we go through these, it just baffles me why the majority of Jake is still out here begging for relief from this man when he is the cause of the grief. Okay? That grief begins with the U.S. government. That's just a fact. That is just a fact. This they trick you, in all these industries, having you sign your life away or absolving them from any wrongdoing when they know what's going to happen to you, so you can't sue them. Okay. But this is just this story. You saw the videos and what this stuff did to this man. It's just absolutely ridiculous. But it's not uncommon. There's a book out called Medical Apartheid. Forget who the author was. Her last name was Washington. Let me see here. Type it up and see if I can get something on it. Medical Apartheid, and it goes through the history of all of the experiments that they've done on Jake in America. Okay. Let's see here. Forget the author's name. Oh, Harriet A. Washington. Harriet A. Washington. Okay. It's called Medical Apartheid, and this is just one of those items. But the thing is, just like the opening scripture said, and I'll come back to this article. For thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. So, at some point, which we truly believe is very near, the nation of Edom, who was a so-called white man. You're gonna have to pay for everything that you've done. And ultimately, that's going to be your extermination. Thus saith the Bible. Verse 18 tells you that. After you serve in your captivity twice as long and twice as hard as we did, you are going to be relieved of your existence on this planet. All right? So let me get into the article here. And, we don't care what you say. You're the ones who took the Bible and made Christianity, but you didn't read it. You didn't read it. Okay? And now there's a whole, you make Christian a whole different doctrine. Okay? And it spells your decline and our uprising. All right? Let me get to the article. Okay, again, it's from Afro News. I'll put a link to this article in the description box of the video. It says, Vertus Hardiman, a man with courage. The victim of an unethical, secret U.S. government radiation experiment in 1928, Vertus Hardiman did not let a severe deformity prevent him from living a full life. His remarkable story was told in a documentary, A Hole in the Head, A Life Revealed. According to the film, Hardiman was born on March 9, 1922, in Lyle Station, Indiana, known as one of the earliest Negro settlements in the United States, right here in Indiana, all right? It says, growing up in an era of racial segregation, he found comfort at Lyle Station Consolidated School. When Hardiman was 5 years old, he was one of 9 children that took part in a terrifying medical experiment. At a local county hospital, the children took part in a misrepresented treatment that was supposed to cure scalp fungus, according to the root. And according to the root, it said instead, The ringworm fungus was a ploy to get access to operate on innocent children. And this this statement right here, this paragraph right here, describes this devil to a T right in the scriptures. This is Sirach or Ecclesiasticus. I believe it's chapter 37. Yes, beginning in verse 7. It says, every counselor extolleth counsel, but there are some that counseleth for himself. Pretty much there's good advice and there's bad advice. Okay? And we know Yahweh Shai is our one and only true counselor. Okay? It says, beware of a counselor and know before what need he hath. All right? And with Yahweh Shai, we know that, it's the law, statutes, and commandments. Okay? But this devil is something else. Esau, Edom, the so-called white man. All right? It says, for he will counsel for himself, lest he cast the lot upon thee and say to thee, thy way is good. So yeah, this experiment here is really going to take care of the ringworm. Okay? When they knew something else was going to happen. All right? And it did. It says, and say unto thee, thy way is good. And afterward he stand on the other side to see what shall befall thee. All right? So he got you to believe in it. Got the parents to sign off on it. That it was going to be of some help to cure the scalp fungus. But it did worse. And that's just what this devil does. All right? Psalms 55. Verse 21. The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords. So yeah, he'll come to you all nice, give you some false benefits of what your participation is going to be. All right. When it's all a trick, it's all to destroy you. And Jake has to start understanding that you cannot trust this devil. Point blank, period. All right. Let's get that. This is Sirach or Ecclesiasticus, chapter 12. And I'm beginning in verse 10. It says, never trust thine enemy, for like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. All right? What causes iron to rust? Oxygen. All right? So that means as long as this son of a bitch is breathing, he's going to be wicked. All right? Psalms 53 tells us there's not one of them that's good. Not one. All right? And we are seeing it in real time. Verse 11 says, though he humble himself and go crouching, yet take good heed and beware of him. All right? And thou shalt be unto him as if thou hast wiped a looking glass, and thou shalt know that his rust have not altogether been wiped away. All right? What happens when you like a looking glass has fog on it? You wipe it away, his true self is still there. All right? That's just what this devil does. All right? Let's go back to the article. It says, at the time, many human radiation experiments were funded by the United States Department of Defense and the United States Atomic Energy Commission. Experiments included feeding radioactive food to disabled children. We did a video on that a while ago. Inserting radium rods into school children and injecting pregnant women and babies with radioactive chemicals. And we know that these were all Israelites, okay? It says inserting radium rods into school children and injecting pregnant women and babies with radioactive chemicals. The studies were classified until 1986 when they were released in the report entitled America Nuclear Guinea Pigs, 3 decades of radiation experiments. And they were watching all of this stuff, studying Jake after they administered these deadly things to them, okay? It says the treatment on his Hardiman skulls left him with progressive necrosis of the scalp throughout the rest of his life. And I had that definition pulled up, necrosis here. It says the death of most or all of the cells in an organ or tissue due to disease, injury, or failure of the blood supply. All right, man, that radiation, took him out, and you saw the pictures of his scalp. All right. It says the disfigurement of his head was so severe that he always wore hats and wigs to disguise his scalp. Hardiman faced intense criticism from friends who had no idea what he was hiding, and for nearly 80 years he kept his disfigurement secret from the public. Despite his obstacle, he graduated from Lincoln High School with honors in 1941. In 1945, Hardiman traveled to the West Coast in search of a job. After a year, he gained employment with the Los Angeles County General Hospital, where he was known as a loyal employee and was honored for his perfect attendance record. It says later in life, Hardiman in Altadena, California, Later in life, Hardiman lived in Altadena, California, and attended First AME Church of Pasadena. He befriended Wilbur Smith, a church member who was also a writer and producer. Hardiman broke down one day in tears and told Smith of the tragedy he faced early in his life. His story was turned into the documentary released in 2009. It was God's grace that helped and kept me here this long, Hardiman said in the film. I think he wanted this story told to show the magnitude of his mercy. All right, and likewise the evilness, of the government against us. All right, it has not stopped. Even in 2020, that's what it was supposed to do. All right, what did Joe Biden say? We have to get it to the underserved communities first. The tribes, the blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. I saw that when he said the tribes. I saw that clip, and you can't find it anywhere. It was scrubbed. Okay? So we knew exactly who they were targeting in 2020. All right? Same thing is about to happen now. Same thing is happening with this 2025 agenda. Okay? And it says, Hardiman died on June 1st, 2007 at the age of 85. All right. And like I said, I'll put a link to this article in the description box. But, hey, he's going to have to pay Esau Edom. This is Ezekiel 36. And again in verse 5. No, I think it's Ezekiel 35, I believe. Yeah, beginning of verse 5. It says, because thou hast had a perpetual hatred and hast shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword in the time of their calamity, in the time that their iniquity had an end. Therefore, as I live, saith Yahweh our power, I will prepare thee unto blood, and blood shall pursue thee. Since thou hast not hated blood, even blood shall pursue thee. All right? And what is that? That goes back to Numbers 35 and 5. Our blood cannot be cleansed unless it's by the blood of him that shed it. Life for life, and that's an entire nation. You try to destroy our nation, yours is going to be destroyed. This is the book of Numbers. Chapter 35 and verse 33. And it reads, So ye shall not pollute the land wherein ye are, for blood it defileth the land, and the land cannot be cleansed of the blood that is shed therein, but by the blood of him that shed it. All right? We just showed you who shed our blood. Okay? Ezekiel 35. Okay? Edomites, Mount Seir. Okay? That was your land. Okay? So wherever you are, that's where Seir is. It's talking about you, the so-called white man. All right? And here's the thing. It's not always about color, because you got some melanated Edomites. You are the seed of your father. You got a lot of so-called white men that impregnate women of color. That baby comes out looking like that woman or someone on the side of her family, but it's the seed line. Okay, that's the basic law of seed. All seed bears after its own kind. All right. No such thing as biracial. All right. No such thing. Whatever the father is, that's what the child is, regardless of what the child looks like. All right. So primarily, Edomites are the so-called white men. Okay. Primarily. Well, like I said, you do have some that have melanin, but when it goes back to that bloodline, that's it. All right. So yeah, it says, let me read that again, Numbers 35 and 5. So ye shall not pollute the land wherein ye are, for blood it defileth the land, and the land cannot be cleansed of the blood that is shed therein, but by the blood of him that shed it. And how's the land going to be cleansed? All right. This is Joel chapter 3, beginning in verse 19, and it reads, Egypt shall be a desolation. Egypt meaning a house of bondage. Okay. And this is modern day Egypt. Just like ancient Egypt, when all 12 tribes were together, the majority of them are right here in America, also known as spiritual Egypt. Okay. And Edom, okay, shall be a desolate wilderness. Okay. That's letting you know, that's associating Egypt with the rulership above Edom and his lands. All right. That's why Esau is compared to Pharaoh in the book of Romans chapter 9. Okay. And here in Babylon the Great, also a name for America. Judah and Israel, the southern and northern kingdom here oppressed together, just like we were in ancient Egypt. Okay. It says, for the violence against the children of Judah, that's the southern kingdom, okay, those part of the transatlantic slave trade, because they have shed innocent blood in their land. Just like Numbers 35 and 33. It says, but Judah shall dwell forever, and Jerusalem from generation to generation. Okay, that's the southern and northern kingdom. Judah's going to dwell forever, and Jerusalem from generation to generation. Okay, that's us with that immortality in those new bodies with the laws, statutes, and commandments on our inward parts. Okay, and having that spiritual power. Okay, it says, for I will cleanse their blood that I have not cleansed. For Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai dwelleth in Zion. Okay, so yeah, it's going to be by our hands at the vengeance of the Lord that they will be destroyed for what they did to us. Point blank, period. That's all to it. All right. And the opening scripture was in Obadiah. Obadiah proves that. This is Obadiah 1 and 18. It says, and the house of Jacob, the southern kingdom, shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph, the northern kingdom, a flame, and the house of Esau for stubble. And they, Jacob and Joseph, shall kindle in them and devour them, and there shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau. For Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai have spoken it. There shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau. And that's after you do your That's after you do your captivity. Okay. Yep. So yeah, everything that you did to us is going to come back to you. All right. I'll close out with this Colossians 3:25. And it reads, But he that doeth wrong shall receive for the wrong which he hath done, and there is no respect of person. So we're not trying to hear that shit. That was a long time ago. Those are my ancestors. I wasn't there. No. You pay for the sins of your father. Okay? You will pay for the sins of your father. The scriptures prove that too. I said this is going to be the last one, but I got to prove that. This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 14, again in verse 21. All right? And it reads, Prepare slaughter for his children for the iniquity of their fathers. Prepare slaughter for his children for the iniquity of their fathers. Yes, you will be slain for the sins of your father. There it is right there. You say you're a Christian, that's what it says. All right? It says that they do not rise nor possess the land nor fill the face of the world with cities. You will never be in rulership again. Ever. All right? Verse 22. For I will rise up against them, saith Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai of hosts. And hosts means armies, okay? And cut off from Babylon the name, which is Edom, the remnant, and son, and nephew, saith Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai. Okay, notice that. He's going to cut off the name, Edom, and remnant, and son, and nephew. All men, that's your seed line. Okay? Cut off the entire seed line forever. So, yeah, again, that was a tragedy. But, he passed away, and, he's all right in the kingdom right now. But you're going to have to pay for that. You're going to have to pay for that, Esau, Edom. All right, so with that, I hope this lesson was edifying to the elect body of the nation of Israel. Once again, I'm going to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rahak HaKodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well in teaching me this 100% truth. Salutations to them and my fellow Akim who labor in this truth week in and week out on the highways and byways. Also, salutations to the hopeful elect of the scattered 12 tribes of Israel, scattered to the four corners of the earth, that be like unto the speckled bird, also known as your Israelite foreigners and your so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. To you, I say Shalom, Kwam Yasharala, Abba Babal. Shalom, we got next.